Yeah, so
That's funny.
because when she sent that, I was like, how did she?
I was like, yeah.
And then
There we go. Okay. All right, I would like to call to order the Monday, February 17th meeting of the City of Monona Finance and Personnel Committee. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Alder Kitzler.
here.
Mayor O'Connor.
Here.
Alder Wood is excused.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the February 3rd meeting?
Move to approve.
I will second. Do you have any changes or additions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Minutes are approved. There are no appearances. There is no unfinished business. First item under new business, consideration of Resolution 20-2-2392, authorizing the issuance and sale of $5,490,000 general obligation promissory notes, Series 2020A.
Move to approve.
And I will second.
Sure.
Mark, were you going to do a little?
Yeah, so basically what this is, there's two things we're doing here. We're approving the general obligation portion of the 2020 capital borrowing, and also we're doing a refinance of a 2012 note. If you kind of look at the fiscal note we have in here, and Jeff will explain what the difference between the resolution and what we actually borrowed. You'll get into that. So we borrowed $2,980,000 is related to the capital projects, and the other difference is related to the refinance. We are actually taking the $40,000 out and paying that off in cash. There's no reason to go another 10 years for that from the sewer utilities. And Jeff will kind of get into, we got some premiums, and it kind of offset the final dollar amount. So I'll let Jeff get into that when he gets up there, explain what that is. So this is, we authorized him at the last meeting to go out and start negotiating with the bondholders. Now he's coming back with his rates from those meetings.
Okay. Mr. Belongia.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Appreciate the opportunity. As Mark said, we have financing this evening, which covers our normal CIP portion of the general fund projects for $2,980,000. And we're restructuring and refinancing a part of a note that was issued $4,950,000. There's $2,750,000 remaining. So we're refunding, restructuring that, dropping the interest cost, and restructuring some of the debt service. As Mark said, we had originally assigned some of these, apportioned some of that issue to stormwater, general fund, and also sewer. And sewer's just going to pay up their $40,000 they have left. There's no sense in restructuring that. They have the cash. So with that, we had originally estimated that we would need, if you add those two numbers up, we would need $5,690,000, which is probably what your initial resolution read in terms of the par amount. During the marketing of that issue, and you can see from the handout that I have showing you the highlights, we were able to drop that par amount by $200,000. After taking premium bids, paying out all the expenses, we had a net premium of $201,737.50. So bonds being sold in $5,000 blocks, we knocked $200,000 off the par amount. If you take a look at the TIC, the true interest cost, that's the cost of your money after all expenses are paid. It's a 1.80%.
That sounds pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there was one other year, though, Mayor, I'm pretty sure that where we dropped slightly under 2% on a 10-year capital projects borrowing. I didn't think those markets would come back, but that shows what I know. you take a look at our comparables down there, we have, obviously ours are a 10-1, so we have the longest maturity on any of those. The Western Tech College District is also a AA+. Oh, and by the way, you know, good news is never boring or mundane. This city maintains an outstanding rating of a AA+ on all of your underlying debt and this particular issue. I would say, though, that you sold more like a AAA in this market. And I say that because of the comparables that we have there. If you look at, you know, the Western Tech College District, Wisconsin AA+, their maturities are 6 months shorter than ours, and yet we're 9 and 12 basis points through their scale. That's pretty significant, really. But we have sold, when I say we, I mean the city of Monona. We've come to market at other times when there's been a few Wisconsin, 1 or 2 Wisconsin AAAs around, and we tend to run through them. It's just a great name. People like to have Mononas in their portfolio. Having worked with you for so long, we know the buyers that have them. We know some that we're going to, get called at $2,750,000 getting called away from them on April 1st. Hey, you want to put some Mononas back in your portfolio? Here's an opportunity. So all those things work together in terms of getting you obviously an incredible interest rate on our CIP.
Can I ask you a quick question on that? How do we compare with like Dane County cities or?
Dane County's a AAA. It's one of the true AAAs. Certainly because of their demographics in Dane counties, we benefit from that. We mutually benefit from the fact that they have a AAA. Although they haven't been in the market. I don't know if I haven't looked at their schedule, but I think they'd be real happy with these particular yields if they were able to get them. So, normally they're about an 0.5 and a couple of maturities different than we would be. And again, I'm a little hesitant to say this, but I think there was, at least one other time where they came close to where we did or just before we did, and I think we had a couple maturities that were through theirs. So, we do very well.
What was the interest rate on the ones through 2012?
Oh, I knew you were going to ask that, Mayor. I think I have it in my stack over there.
At the council meeting.
Yeah. Thank you.
Just curious.
Yeah.
Have any other questions? Mark, did you have anything else to
No,
add?
I don't. One last thing. We borrowed for the general obligation portion of it. We do have the sewer, water and sewer left to do. We'll do that a little bit later. We also have we have a revenue band that needs to be refinanced at the same time. So that's like a short-term note. So we're kind of going to put those all together, and especially we're getting some other things related to water and sewer. So I think we're doing that in April, I think is the same.
Yeah, that's a good lead-in, Mark. We do have that revenue bond issue. A few years ago, we borrowed $1,160,000 or something. It was too small to put into a revenue bond, just the way in which they're sold. And I said to Mark, let's park it in a short-term note. We'll just pay interest because you're going to need more. And now we've got a nice $4.1 million revenue bond issue that'll sell very well into the market. And certainly, it's hindsight, but rates would have been higher back then when if we'd have done them than they're going to be now. So, it was kind of looks like a win-win for us.
Okay. Well,
And that'll be coming in April. We do have some TID 9 taxable notes that are outstanding that I think you know about. They're callable. Most of them are callable this September. So sometime during the summer, Mayor, we'll be talking about how we want to address that, because I do know that you're also considering facilities needs in the future, which will, by statute dictates we're going to probably have to do general obligation financing for those. So, but you'll be in fine shape. No worries.
Good. That's good to hear. Joan, do you need a roll call for this?
Yes.
Okay. If there aren't any questions, will clerk please call the roll?
Okay, Alder Kitzler.
Aye.
Mayor O'Connor.
Aye. Motion passes. Next item, consideration of resolution 20-2-2393, adopting a policy to provide a paid family care leave benefit for city employees.
Move to approve.
And I will second. Leah.
Thank you, Mayor. This is the exact same policy that you saw at the last meeting. We didn't put an action item on the agenda for that.
Oh, okay.
So this is just the formal approval of passing this on to the city council tonight.
Okay, so we haven't made any changes?
No changes
to
since
that.
we last saw it.
Did
Nope.
you have anything further to say about that? Okay, well then, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And say aye also. Motion passes. And our final item, C, consideration of ordinance 2-20-7726, amending section 395 of the Code of Ordinances relating to neighborhood block parties and creating a penalty. Is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
I will second. Brian, were you going to take this one?
Yes, thank you. So this is the first step in a multi-step process to revise our special event policy and the related ordinances. The decision on the staff level was made to peel off the neighborhood block parties and do it as a separate item because it's one of the easier topics and provides a streamlined process for people who might want to be applying for neighborhood block parties in the coming months. So there will be more to come on the special event process, but we felt it was best to separate this out, make sure we've dealt with this properly, and then we'll tackle the other pieces as they come. This has been read in committee, Public Safety Committee, at the January 22nd meeting. They did have some edits that I have incorporated in a red line version of this draft ordinance. And on page 21 of, it's the third, yeah, it's fourth page of this item's packet materials, there is the revised schedule of fees. You'll note that the block party permit fee is $10 per event, and then there's a $25 deposit for barricades that's refundable upon return of the barricades in good condition 48 hours after the event. If the barricades are damaged or lost for whatever reason, then the organizer would be charged the replacement cost of those barricades.
And that's a new fee.
Yes. I'm not sure.
I should say I've never paid it before.
Have you damaged the...
No, but I haven't put a deposit down. I've
Because
no-
you're a known quantity.
Yeah. I have no financial questions on this. I have some other ones, but I'll save those for council.
I just had kind of an administrative question. I guess in the box it says office use only. Under approval signature, I notice there's all these other signatures in the box below that. Is that your signature? Above all the department review and approval signatures?
There should be one for, this is the applicant signature, and then, yeah, the office
Is that
user,
you?
that's me, and then there's the other department heads that have to review the application.
I don't know if you want to change that to read administrator approval or something, or?
So this is a new application?
Yep.
Any other questions? Okay, all in favor of, I guess, sending it to council with the, after it goes to Public Works, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. Next item is acceptance of general fund accounts payable checks dated January 31st through February 13th. Documentation of invoices paid is available in the city clerk's office. Mark.
Yes. I'm going to use the page number on the top. So when I'm referencing, I'm going to reference the page number on the top corner. If you go to page 5, just with the weather tonight, so you can see Detroit Salt Company. This is part of our Public Works, part of their salt purchase for the year.
Do you know, are we in line with what we've budgeted, or are we, seems like we haven't had a lot of storms, but. I don't
Yeah,
know.
so far to date we are.
Okay.
Page 8, strained. Just looking at what kind of the 4 things they've been working on with for us so far. On page 9, on the next page, West Broadway Hotel. That was part of our developers agreement. We paid that out. Page 11, Exxon Enterprise. Tasers, that is part of our 2020 capital purchases. Again, on page 13, we do another Detroit Salt Company. With those two get together, we have like a $30-some thousand budget. So these are the first kind of the year so far as far as the salt purchases.
Sorry, Mark, I did have a question on page 11. It says Amazon.com room rental refund. What were we refunding a room rental from Amazon?
I could answer that.
Oh,
Was that-
A library room rental patron paid through Amazon for a room rental. And then, so she wanted her refund payable to Amazon. So
Okay.
she could pay it back directly to her credit card.
oh, okay. That's
Page 14, Kilgus. Boiler repair, that was part of, we did a budget amendment in the last year for that. That is $8,000 as part of that.
Where was that, Mark?
Community
Was
center.
that the community center?
Yeah.
I thought we were replacing a boiler at the community center.
It's, I guess it's the same thing.
Is that what this is? It's
Yeah.
not actually repair, it's
Right.
replacement? Okay.
a good question.
I thought it was pretty expensive. Okay.
It
Page-
did repair the problem.
Yeah. That's true.
Page 15, Johnson Tree, just one hit on this. They are a full goal at the ash tree removal right now. Page 16, going into 17, is our Monona Bank credit card. And with that, just kind of the process, they buy them, they give the receipts to Joan, and they're all signed off, and with that, she inputs those. So
What-
there is
What
a.
happens with the Amazon receipts? Do you have a receipt for what the specific item was then? Do you get
Yes.
that? Okay.
And if there's several to Amazon for the same account number, I add them together. So this
Oh,
may
okay.
not be one purchase to Amazon for $53. It could be like 3 small purchases.
Okay.
Page 17, MSA Professional Services, Capital City Bike Trail, which was part of the 2019 capital. It's kind of carried over in 2020. And that's all I have.
Okay, any questions?
No.
Is there a motion to accept the bills?
Move to accept the bills.
I will second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
I will second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned.
First meetings are always.
would like to call to order the Monday, February 17th meeting of the Monona City Council. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Alder Moore. Here. Alder Kitzler.
Here.
Alder Kohr. Here. Alder Thomas.
Here.
Alder Groupie. Here. Mayor O'Connor.
Here.
Alder Wood is excused.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the February 3rd meeting?
I'll second.
Any corrections or additions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. There are no appearances, there is no public hearing. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Consent agenda is approved. I'm going to move item A under new business up so that Mr. Belanger can hit the road for Milwaukee. This is a start for immediate approval, so is there a motion?
Move to suspend the rules and take this item out of order.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Okay, Mark?
Yes, I think most of you probably just heard Jeff talk, but this is a two things here. We are approving the 2020 capital, portion of 2020 capital, and we also did a refinance of the 2012 note. With that, Jeff, last meeting, we gave Jeff Belanger, our finance advisor, consultant, to authorize him to start negotiating with bondholders. He went out and negotiated with the bondholders and came back with a very good rate. The par amount is the amount we're borrowing is actually different than what we approved last time. And Jeff will kind of explain why it's different. So I'll let kind of Jeff kind of dig into the details, but we got an extremely good rate right now. So.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you. I really appreciate your consideration. My normal hour trek here took almost 2, but in any case.
But we're well worth it.
Yes.
Yes, you absolutely are. I left 2 hours early so I wouldn't be late. But thank you, I appreciate that. Good news, obviously, is this city maintains an incredible bond rating of AA+. We once again secured that, reaffirmed that rating on all of our existing debt. It allows us to compete at a very high level, as you know, in any interest rate market. As Mark said, when we originally sized the issue, for doing the preliminary numbers, the preliminary resolutions, which you took a look at for our first reading, we needed a total of $5,690,000. That need didn't go away. It just has appeared or come to us in the form of not only a borrowing amount, a par amount, but also in premiums. So according to IRS regulations and state statutes, we needed to utilize those premiums to reduce the refunding portion of this issue. So you're looking at a resolution tonight for $5,490,000 versus our original estimate of the $5,690,000. There were a little over, there was 200, well, if we take the single sheet of paper that I handed out to you showing you comparables, interest rate comparables, and the highlights of this particular financing, the par amounts dropped to $5,490,000. With that, there was a purchase price of $5,691,737.50 for a net premium of $201,737.50. Is everyone following? See that? So by IRS regs and legal counsel's advice, we took that $200,000 and reduced our par amount. Those are nice. And of course, issuing less par amount with lower interest costs produces lower total interest costs and lower total cost. So we're pretty happy to be able to bring these rates to you this evening. If you look down at the bottom, we have our yields. We're a 10-1. Watertown was a 6-1, and the Western Tech College District was a 4-1. We're 6 months longer than that AA+. They're a true AA+ like we are. Take a look at the yields and comparable yields. Even if you forget about the fact that we're 6 months longer and would expect ours to be a little higher in a perfect world against a security that's going to come due 6 months sooner. We're actually through them by 10, 11, and 12 basis points. So that's consistently through that scale. We're certainly through the AA3s water towns, which you would expect to be. You particularly look at 2029, we're a 149, they're a 165. That's 16 basis points in that maturity alone. More than indicative of the differential in the rating. It really is. Monona's got a great name. I've said this before, you've heard me say it before. You market very well, and people like to have the Monona Wisconsins in their portfolio. It's that simple. Kind of gives you a little edge in terms of price. If somebody likes a little more, they're willing to pay a little higher price, a little lower yield on it. So we tend to find that when we market the debt for you guys. So outstanding, really. All that said, when you pay everybody ratings, legal opinion, you got a 1.80 TIC on a 10-year piece of paper. It's pretty impressive. I've been around a long time doing this. I think we had one year a 197. I'm not positive, but I'm almost sure that we had a 10-year CIP where we ended up with a 197. And I might have said something stupid like, we'll never get below that. And here I am facing up to you and saying I maybe fibbed a bit. We're at a 180. So.
It is their second one. Under two.
Is there a second time?
Yeah.
It is their
That's
second
great.
time. So, you know what? Get your projects done because they're not going to get cheaper than this money, I don't believe. So, inflation's going to eat that 180 up in the next couple of years. So, any questions? Again, I thank you. Yes, sir.
I know I asked in finance how we compare to Dane County, but how about even like Middleton, Wanakee, Sun Prairie, those kind of?
You'll beat all of those head to head in any given market.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, they're good credits. They're not quite as strong as we are.
Any other questions? Hearing none, will clerk please call the roll?
Alder Groupie? Aye. Alder Moore? Aye. Alder Kitzler?
Aye.
Alder Crowell?
Aye.
Alder Thomas?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you and drive safely.
Thank you.
Hang on just a minute. I think there's someone in the audience who previously asked to speak. Is that Lorraine? Did you wish to speak, didn't you, today? No. Oh, you didn't? Oh, I thought you wanted to introduce yourself to.
Oh, I can.
You don't have to, that's okay. If you wanted to say something, you can. Otherwise, you could just watch too. Sorry, I thought that's why you were coming.
Thank you.
So we're kind of reopening appearances here. Thank you. For a moment, so.
So I will introduce myself. My name is Lorraine Gage, and I am on the school board, and I am running for the upcoming election. So I just kind of wanted to say hi, so you have a familiar face when you see me campaigning. So,
Great, and you took Jeff Simpson's spot,
I did.
correct?
I did.
Last fall.
yes, so there were 16 candidates, and I was appointed, I guess, amongst the candidates. So.
Great.
It's a pleasure to be on the board and pleasure to serve the school district. All
Okay,
right,
well,
thanks.
please let us know if you have any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we will move back to unfinished business. Consideration of ordinance 2-20-725, amending chapter 296 of the Code of Ordinances relating to massage and bodywork therapy, put forth by the police chief. Is there a motion to approve this?
Move approval.
Second.
Wally, did you want to?
Hi. So as reported at the last meeting, this is basically just to bring our ordinance in line with what the changes are in the state statute. It gives us the ability to enforce if the actual therapists are now required to be licensed by the state. So other than that, there's not really any changes.
Anyone have any questions? Did we have a motion?
Yes.
Yes, okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item, B, consideration of ordinance 2-20-727, authorizing meeting attendance by audiovisual technology. Is there a motion to approve this?
Second.
Thank you. After the feedback I received from the council at our last meeting, I provided a red line version in your packet. Again, I've stricken out the specific language about telephones and added the more general term audiovisual technology to allow for a go-to-meeting or some similar type application that we could potentially use for these type of situations. So the ordinance has been updated to reflect that change, and other than that, that's the only substantial change since the last time we've seen it. So with that, I'll request council approval.
Questions, anyone? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Moving down to new business, item 2B, consideration of resolution 20-2-2393, adopting a policy to provide a paid family care leave benefit for city employees. This is put forth by the Finance and Personnel Committee. And I will just preface this by saying I know this has been a long time coming. Contrary to, I think, what a lot of people thought, we were not able to find any existing policies to even base a policy on. Well, I can't say we couldn't find any, but what we found were a few larger cities and states had policies, but they were all involving insurance policies that employees would buy into, that would then cover extended leave in unusual circumstances. So this is what we've come up with, and we'll try it and see is our thoughts. So Leah, do you want to?
Thank you, Mayor O'Connor. Just a sort of reminder of where we started with this policy. In the 2019 operating budget, this body voted to fund two policies. One was a paid parental leave policy, so that offers all eligible employees 2 weeks of paid leave for the birth or adoption of a child or foster child. And then they also adopted or voted to adopt a policy to provide employees with paid leave to care for a sick family member. So the paid parental leave policy, the first of those policies, was adopted by this council last May. Just wanted to give you an update on where we are with that. So to date, since last May, we've had 6 employees who've used the paid parental leave policy, 5 men and 1 woman. 3 of those employees were salaried, 3 were hourly employees. Our costs for that, which were just our fixed costs and overtime, was about $1,300. And then we did have some outside costs because one of those employees, we had to hire some contract work to replace some of his duties while he was out. So to date, we have probably about $1,900 in costs for that policy for 6 employees. So this policy that you have before you, in front of you here tonight, then, is the second of those policies. So that would provide 2 weeks of leave for employees to care for a sick family member. And unlike the paid parental leave policy, I believe this policy has, the potential to be a lot more widely used among employees than the first policy. So the intent of this policy has been to give employees time to deal with a family member's acute or unexpected serious medical situation without the financial hardship of taking unpaid time off from work or exhausting all of their leave balances. So as we were looking at writing this policy, we were looking at not sort of routine illnesses, not to take care of a family member that has the flu or something sort of routine, but we're looking at something that's, quite a serious condition, something that's acute, something that's unexpected. So things like heart attacks, strokes, cancer, major accidents, major surgeries, something that the employees wouldn't have been able to plan for, or really could sort of disrupt their life and make it difficult for them to balance their work and life at that time. This policy like the first paid parental leave policy, will run concurrent with the Family Medical Leave Act. So if Family Medical Leave Act applies, those two policies would run concurrently. But we didn't want to tie this policy to the Family Medical Leave Act by saying that if an employee was eligible for leave under the Family Medical Leave Act, they would automatically be eligible under this policy. And there were a couple of reasons for that. First, because the Family Medical Leave Act allows employees to take leave for their own serious illness or medical condition. This policy would not. We would have employees use their own sick leave to take leave for their own serious illnesses, and this policy would only be for the illnesses of a family member. Secondly, the definition of a serious medical condition under the Family Medical Leave Act is very specific and it's very cumbersome. And, large employers have entire HR, they have HR people who are dedicated only to Family Medical Leave Act issues. So, and we have me. So that would be kind of tough, I think, to tie the definitions from the Family Medical Leave Act to this policy. And then another reason is that the Family Medical Leave Act also does allow you to use that leave for chronic conditions. So someone who suffers periodic migraines or asthma attacks or arthritis, those are all qualifying conditions under the Family Medical Leave Act. And those aren't really what we were looking for in terms of the intent of this policy. So that's why we decided not to tie it completely to the Family Medical Leave Act. So we wrote a first draft of the policy, and we've kind of been going back and forth with the Finance and Personnel Committee a bunch of times on this. We still have defined serious medical condition sort of fairly specifically, but not overly specifically. So the way that it's defined in the policy you have in front of you is a serious medical condition is defined as inpatient care in a hospital, hospice, or other medical facility, a period of mental or physical incapacity which is caused by a major medical event, illness, or major surgery, or by the treatment for a major illness, like chemotherapy, for instance. I still have concerns about interpreting serious medical condition when it comes right down to interpreting it, especially if we're going to guarantee employees a benefit based on that interpretation. It's still going to be tricky, but I think that going generally and working with employees is going to be better than having a 3-page laundry list of what qualifies and doesn't qualify for this policy. We did explore other options. For instance, we looked at simply just increasing the cap that employees can accumulate sick leave up to and allowing them to go over their cap so that they would have extra sick leave to use in case they have an emergency situation that needs to be addressed. We also looked at giving employees like one deposit, like a one-time deposit of 2 weeks that they would just keep in a special bank and use when they wanted to. But there were questions, there were benefits and drawbacks to all of those things. And so after sort of a lot of back and forth, we came up with this policy that you have in front of you. So basically this policy would allow eligible employees, and here we're defining an eligible employee as someone who is classified as full-time or permanent part-time. So this wouldn't be offered to hourly employees or seasonal employees or to our paid-on-call firefighters or EMTs. And they must have worked for at least 12 consecutive months in the city to be eligible for the policy. And permanent part-time employees who work less than full-time would be eligible for this policy on a prorated basis, like they are for other city benefits. So basically we're saying we will provide a request form, and an employee who is in a situation where they're going to have a hardship with a situation like this would fill out the request form, and we would establish a committee consisting of the city administrator, myself, and the department head, the applicable department head for that employee's department, to look at the employee's request for this leave and to evaluate their request based on the information that they provide us. If they have privacy concerns, They only have to provide us as much information as we basically need to make the decision, and then we'll just make the decision based on the information that we have. And then if we feel that the employee does qualify for leave based on this policy, we will have the opportunity to give that employee up to 2 weeks of leave, and work with them on how they can take that leave, in terms of not necessarily dictating that it all has to be taken at once, but whatever works best for them and causes at the same time the minimal disruption to their department. So that's it in a nutshell.
Questions? Molly?
I have a couple of questions. One is that just as far as who may be eligible, I noticed that like long-term partners who are not living together is not eligible, and I know of a couple of not city staff, but people that I know who are in long-distance relationships who are very serious but not considered domestic partners or in a domestic partnership in that way. And so I would just request that maybe there's some wiggle room in partnerships between people that isn't as narrowly defined in that section. The other question I had, it talks about the approval group. Is there a specific, is it unanimous approval? Is it, majority? Has that been worked out as far as how it's determined whether or not a request is approved or denied?
I mean, I think ideally we'd like it to be unanimous,
Okay.
but, I think if there's a stalemate, 2-1, it would just be majority.
Okay. And then my last question, and you kind of talked about a staff member can sort of talk at their discretion about what the issue is that they're requesting the leave for. But it talks in the section E that the decision of the approval group will be final. Is there an opportunity throughout the process for the employee to provide additional documentation or any additional information to make sure that they have sort of exhausted all of their, avenues prior to that denial being a final decision?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that the intent of this policy in terms of making it a little bit more general and not quite so rigid is that we could work with the employee and work back and forth, and it's not going to be sort of a super regimented process.
Great.
So that's the intent.
Thank you.
Alderman Moore?
You mentioned that this would not be applicable to the employee themselves. Do we offer the same class by identification through this policy, either short-term or long-term disability insurance for employees, or is that something that they can buy into if they were concerned about their own well-being?
We do offer a short-term disability insurance
Okay.
policy.
Okay.
Employees can buy into it.
Okay.
There's a waiting period on that policy. The shortest waiting period is 30 days.
Right.
But yes, we do offer that policy.
Okay.
Anyone else? Alder Corey?
When would the 12-month calculations start? Is it going to be a January 1 start, or is it when the anniversary date is?
Yeah, I think it would be, from the first date that they use the policy, we just start the clock there in terms of a.
Okay, so
Yeah.
potentially if someone had an issue in December, they'd have to wait till the following December to
Yeah.
use it again.
Mhm.
If they use the whole 2 weeks,
If they use the
right?
whole 2 weeks, yeah.
And of course, they still have 2.5 weeks of sick leave that they earn every year, correct? That they can also use for these.
They also
vacation.
have vacation and holidays.
Right, and floating holidays.
So they have a number of other, so if it would fall in the beginning of a year, they would have all of those days at the beginning of the year also to use.
Alder Moore?
I just wanted to clarify. So when you were discussing the city administrator and yourself and the department head making the decision based on the information that you have, I certainly understand that this policy creates a certain degree of hardship for any department, right? If they weren't valuable, we wouldn't be employing them. And yet, I just want to make sure that we're clear that that we're prepared as a city to, as we have already done, to get contract help or whatever else needs in instituting this policy. You know, in a sense, it wasn't, the basis of the decision of family leave wasn't around how difficult it would be for the department. Rather, you know, how supportive it would be for the employees. So I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page there, that even though it might be difficult, it's not, that would not be a reason to deny someone this benefit.
Yeah, that is absolutely not the intent.
Okay.
I think it would
Okay.
be only in extreme cases, and I couldn't even think of
Okay.
one
Okay.
to give you right now where that would be the situation. But one of the reasons why the department supervisor is included in that three-person committee is so that we can have that discussion about how would you backfill that position.
Right.
And
Okay, great. I just want to make sure that was crystal clear.
Or if there are options for how the employee took their time, if we could,
Right.
you know, find options that work,
Right.
you know, well for both the employee and the employer
Right.
would be great.
Right. Absolutely.
Kind of like we've done in some
Right.
respects already for situations like this. Sure. Anyone else? Alder Kitzler.
Did Attorney Cole review this or have his people review this?
So I sent the original version of this policy to Attorney Cole. He had one of his colleagues who specializes in HR law look at that. Attorney Cole has not provided me an opinion on this particular policy. So,
And then just as far as a comment, we did look at so many different scenarios. This was much more complex than I ever thought it would be. So a great deal of gratitude and applause to you and all other city staff for looking at finances and just kind of working through scenarios and options and seeing what works best. And, you know, thank you so much for this, because this wasn't a small amount of time. I mean, you wrote this from scratch, and I like the idea that putting it in writing is much harder.
Right.
So thank you.
Yeah, this looks fairly simple right now. I don't know if you could even call it that, but yeah, compared to some of the other things we talked about, it is, I guess. But
and it will be a work in progress.
Yeah.
I'm fully expecting that we'll have to tweak it and change it over time as we run into things that we didn't anticipate. But
and I'm sure we probably will. That's just how these things go.
Well, and on that note, just I mean, updating finance and personnel as the years go on. I appreciate the update on the parental leave, and I think that's important just to see how things go, so we're not surprised at the end when we either need more money or we have a bunch more money in kind of the fund balance.
yeah.
So.
I mean, honestly, I guess if I can just, I think that what this policy has in writing is something that as a city we've actually been doing for quite a long time, and which is we try to accommodate employees when they have a hardship and they have a hard situation by allowing them to go in the hole on their sick leave for a while with the agreement that if they leave before they pay it back, it comes out of their last check or whatever. So I do think that we've been doing sort of just this, but this just sort of puts something formal in writing.
Anyone else? Alder Kitzler?
Sorry, and I don't think this necessarily needs to be said, and this policy wasn't something that we aren't doing, because through meeting with you, certainly I learned that we bend over backwards to be great to our employees. One reason I look at this as a need is just, who knows who's going to be here in 20, 30 years, maybe Leah too won't be as nice as Leah is now, so, a new person, not that your personality would change.
It might.
But no, I mean, I think that's one reason why I look at this as important to get it in writing, is because we just never know.
Anyone else? Okay, well, this will come back next time. So I guess if you have any concerns in the meantime, let Brian and Leah know.
Thank you.
And the final item, 2C, consideration of ordinance 2-20-726, amending section 395 of the Code of Ordinances relating to neighborhood block parties and creating a penalty. City Administrator.
Thank you. So this is the first step in a multi-step process to revise our special event policy. After a discussion with a number of different staff members, we decided it was probably best to peel off the neighborhood block party process, make it its own separate process that's different and separate from a host of different events that occur in the community. So the kind of level of complexity runs from as small as a neighborhood block party and maybe some of the children's runs that occur all the way up to the larger kind of marathon type events that are run by nonprofit organizations. So just as the first step, we thought it would be best to pull out neighborhood block parties, simplify that process, get that taken care of, and then there'll be a number of other pieces that we'll address along the way. So what we did is we put together a draft ordinance for your review that talks just about neighborhood block parties. The Public Safety Committee reviewed this at their meeting in January 22nd. They provided some feedback to me, which I've included in a red line version further on in your packet materials, the changes that they requested along with a memo kind of outlining those changes. This, after your first read tonight, will go back to the Public Safety Committee for their next meeting in February. And then assuming if there are no substantial tweaks there, it'll come back to the City Council for our first meeting in March. A couple of things to note, and again, this is information that could be modified based upon the will of the council, but we've set it up so that neighborhoods could apply for up to 2 block parties per year. They would have to go through an application process in getting signatures from at least 75% of the residents of that block that are 18 or older. That's similar to language in our current special event policy ordinance. And then there's a small fee for the actual permit fee, $10. And then there's a deposit for the barricades that will be used to block off the neighborhood of $25. That would be refunded back to the organizer once the barricades are returned, and assuming the barricades aren't damaged. There were some tweaks that the Public Safety Commission asked me to include in the red line version, basically just clarifying that collector and municipal arterial streets would not be allowed for street closures for neighborhood block parties, in part because of just the volume of traffic that goes through those areas. And we'll use the definition of DOT to determine what those streets are, and that mirrors other language elsewhere in our ordinance so that we're internally consistent. They put the suggestion for adding up to 2 neighborhood block parties per year. And if the council and the committee wanted to change that number, that's something they could discuss. And then on the actual application form, which is a new application form, we've added some signature boxes for the various department heads that have to review this request. So with that, I'll take any questions you may have.
Alder Coor and then Alder Thomas.
Alder Thomas was first.
Alder Thomas, you want to go first?
I noticed that under the C6, it says the administrator shall approve it. I would suggest that we allow you to have a designee, because I'd like you to be able to take a vacation longer than 7 days or be sick longer than 7 days.
Sure.
So I think wherever it says you, and I think that you may well turn it over to someone, so I just think it's you or a designee we should put in there.
Okay. Appreciate that.
John?
2 things. One, in the memo it refers to collector streets, and in the ordinance it refers to connector streets.
Collector, it should be both.
Okay. And then in terms of the 75% of residents, are we talking about residents or are we talking about households? Because potentially you could have 5 adults living at a home.
It's a fair question. I used the same language that's in our ordinance today, which is one of the reasons why we need to take a look at the special ed policy in totality. So if you want to suggest a modification of that, I'm open to that. It could be 75% of households. There would have to be somebody living there that's over 18 in order to.
Right. I think the intent is to get as many houses on the block.
Saying yes, we know what's going on.
So I think referring to households as opposed to residents may be easier, and with the understanding that the person signing needed to be 18, so you couldn't get all the kids in the block, grab them with popsicles, and then give them cotton.
And I think the permit itself says households. And maybe the ordinance says something different, but I think we should follow what the original permit said as far as household.
Which permit are you? The one?
I'll get to dig it up. I know. When
the original
the very
application?
original.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And that will likely be changed as well once
Yeah.
we update the ordinance.
But I agree with Alder Coor. It should be households.
Okay.
Alder Moore?
Is there a permit fee for the block party now?
Yeah, it's $10.
Yeah, $10.
I guess I wonder, again, bang for buck. It's kind of like when we were talking about the, how much it was going to cost to send us water bills out every month. It seems to me that the amount of administrative time to be sending out applications, reviewing applications, making arrangements for the barricades, et cetera. I guess I just wonder whether it's really worth the $10, which is to say, should it be, if it's a whole block, should it be raised a little bit more so we're at least covering our administrative costs? Or because they would really not charge anything. Because it just, I don't know, it just seems like, you can barely buy a drink for $10. It's such a small amount of money, and given the amount of administrative overhead and time it takes of various departments to make sure that, it just seems like, yeah, Kath.
Alder Thomas.
There are some things I think a community does out of goodwill.
Right.
And block parties, Roygan Terrace has done it. They do it down on Belle Isle. Frostwoods used to have one on Frostwoods Park and on the 4th of July. And it wasn't ever a big deal. We always got barricades, and we went to the police and we got them. And I just think there are some things that you do as a community, some services that you allow without trying to make a lot of money. That's how much can it cost us? What it costs us is staff time. We're not going to hire a new staff person to do it. They're just going to fit it in. And if they don't seem to think that it's a problem to do it, I suppose if we get a large number who want to do it and they're lined up and you have to hire someone to do it, then we can change the ruling on it. But in the meantime, it's maybe a half a dozen that happen in a year.
Right.
And it's not a big deal.
There's one that I am allowed to, mooch off of on Midmore as well. That's why I'm saying maybe we should just waive the fee altogether. I'm not suggesting we're going to make money. I'm just saying it just seems like almost like not even worth the $10.
I think if you charge a fee, they'll get the barricades. The problem is getting them to return the barricades and to clean up the street.
Right.
And I think if you do that as a deposit, they'll be more conscientious. Not that they aren't. I think if you charge them a fee, that's a deposit and give it back if everything goes well. Because you may have those who aren't responsible.
Yeah, I'm fine striking the $10 fee. I would keep the $25 deposit for the barricades, but yeah, I agree with your argument.
Alder Kitzler.
Joan, what is the staff time that this, because I ask you just because I'm the one, when I do my block party, I turn it into you.
Mm-hmm. Well, it gets routed around between staff. There's several signatures required on each one. Police look at it for sure. Staff has to put it on their calendars, add it to their work schedule. I guess, and then I have to generate a small, half sheet form.
Yeah.
That's not a big deal, but there's some, there is staff involvement.
And how many do we have about a year?
There's more than 6. It's kind of been growing how people want to gather community lately is a good push that's happening, and also the weather, we all want to get out as much as we can. There's more children's parties with large bouncy houses. We talked about that, and they're increasing, I would say. Off the top of my head, I think there's at least a dozen.
Okay. So I just have maybe a number of questions, or at least a couple of questions. So the definition of block party, only invitees within the area of 1,000 feet. How is 1,000 feet picked? is it just a standard definition, or how
Yeah,
do we monitor that? Or?
I mean, that's the definition I've seen. So in drafting this, I looked at a number of other communities across the country that had block party ordinances similar to the intent that we were looking at, and that 1,000 feet was a pretty standard way of saying, because not, depending on where your house is located, you might be on a block or part of, so 1,000 feet was kind of the thumbnail.
But it's something that, if things got crazy and all of a sudden there was, a neighborhood concert that's bringing in 1,000 people, then we.
That's different, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That would drift into the special event.
Yeah,
Yes.
no, and I just bring it up because 1,000 feet. I invite some people that are outside of that ring to our block party and such, and so it's just she falls with it. The 2 neighborhood block party permits per year. How do you define? Is it that? I'm just thinking, so for example, Midmore, I know I block off our section and then some other time during the summer, some other part of Midmore gets blocked off. What, how do you define who's requesting it or what block is being?
I mean, similar to our previous discussion on the paid leave policy, I mean, we're going to work with the neighborhoods as much as possible. I don't want to have to say, if your house is within the range of 1 to 36, you're in this neighborhood, and 36 to, we just don't have time to administer that. So I think we'll just work as best we can with the neighborhoods.
That's fine. The 75% of residents or that need, or like households that need to approve it. I'm wondering where the 75 came from, and maybe this is more of a comment for the special events one. That some blocks are pretty small. And 75% could very well be 1 or 2 residents. I think on my block it's 2 or maybe 3 that could say no, which, there's arguments for it being that high and there's arguments maybe for lessening it. But then again, maybe this comment is more for the special events one where, for example, we had an organization try to rent out both Waterman and Schluter, and then it got hung up on needing the 6 residents to sign off on closing that part of Waterman and getting 75% of them. And, my idea of an event not happening because of, in that case, potentially 1 or 2 residents saying no could be a detriment for the usage of those parks and kind of the success of future events and different things like that. So maybe that's more of a comment, but.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, again, that language mirrored the special event policy. So if the council or the public safety committee wanted to modify that, to drop that down from 75%, that's definitely something that we could talk about.
Okay. And then, sorry, my final.
I want to comment on that as a member of the public safety committee, is that the original language, to my knowledge, was that you needed 100% of households. And so we just thought that that was too punitive. And so, 75 was sort of like a suggestion. So it's not something that I think that we're beholden to as a public safety committee, and I think that's negotiable. So, but the original language we thought was too restrictive.
Yeah, it's been 75 for at least 5 years or so.
I think we had a long discussion about.
Anyway,
maybe my draft had 100%.
Okay.
But yeah.
Or it wasn't, at least it wasn't clear, something about it wasn't clear. So.
Yeah, because we have to have a petition. There's a petition that
Right.
Applicant has to pass around, and that's where the number is based on, and it's not 100%, but it's.
but negotiable.
Yeah.
And then my final thing was with the barricades. I know, this obviously adds, and I would, be happy to pay, but Public Works, I'm using myself continually as an example, drops off the barricades, and I set up a time or let them know how many, and then they pick them up on that Monday. So the way this is written now, we would have to pick them up. Is that the way we're going to go for all block parties, is where residents have to go pick them up and then drop them off afterwards? Or
Well, I'll talk to Public Works and see if that's a service that they can still provide, given the other responsibilities that they have. If they're still able to drop them off at the organizer's request, then I'll change the permit to reflect that.
And if there's a way, I mean, I completely understand that they have their own busy, days, and it just might not work out to drop it off. And I don't know if there's appropriate wording to say, as able, Public Works will do it, but, essentially be prepared that you might need to find a truck and pick up the barricades if need be. But
Alder Court?
Can we do a differentiation of fees? you pay an extra $10 if you want someone to pick them up. I mean, because I'd certainly do that and not have to struggle and get them in my Subaru.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, I'd be open to that being a part of the fee, you know.
Alder Moore.
Yeah, I guess I would say, given having listened to Joan and also now with Public Works involved, I would advocate for increasing the fee overall rather than dismissing it. I mean, I understand that it's a nice service for residents. I'm not trying to make money, but if it's, as Joan said, if it's being passed to multiple departments and people are having to walk around for multiple signatures and multiple reviews, and then we're also getting Public Works driving out and dropping and driving out and picking up, it just, that, to me, I think, I'm just cautious about, adding stuff to and the numbers are increasing. I'm just cautious about adding stuff to staff plates under other duties as assigned that ends up taking more time than we think and trying to recoup some of that. I mean, their time is valuable.
Alder Moore.
I don't disagree that time is valuable, but I get concerned with increasing the rate because I know we're just not going to make up. I mean, if you laid out as much staff time as goes into providing this service, we would have to charge an obscene amount, and it's just not. Then it becomes something that residents don't want to do. So.
Alder Thomas.
There is generally a lot of work involved in planning a block party, and I don't see why people can't pick up their own barricades. I mean, we used to do it. You pick them up, and you return them. And if you don't, you pay a fee. I agree with charging a fee if they want them delivered and picked up. Charge them $25 to do that. But, there's no reason why people can't do it, because if it's on Saturday, then does it get dropped off on Friday, and does it happen? I mean, it just gets complicated. So if they want them delivered, I think they have to pay. That's a service, in my opinion.
Anyone else? So do you have enough to? Guess you can discuss that.
No good deed goes unpunished. Remember that.
No, I appreciate the discussion. This is useful information.
And you can discuss it at public safety. Is that it for everybody? Okay. That's all of our action items. Next item is report of committees, commissions, etc. Alder Thomas.
I don't have a report. I have a thank you. I want to thank the city administrator and the mayor for working diligently to get. I understand from talking to Chief Sullivan that the PFAS foam is being removed from the trucks tomorrow. That is fast, and it is quick, and it is an essential thing, and you guys worked really fast to get it taken care of and get the funding. So I thank you for that.
There's a press release that went out to the newspaper this evening, so hopefully it'll get done.
Alder Corr.
No report.
Alder Kitzler.
No report.
Alder Groupie.
I'm sure that John will talk about it, but vote tomorrow in the spring primary.
Alder Moore.
Nothing to report.
Joan.
I don't know, is there anything going on? I had no idea that we would set up a spring election in a snowstorm. It's only happened one other time in my time here, and it was really fun. And we're ready. Badger books look awesome. I think they're going to be great. I think people are going to love using them. And we're ready for you all to come. Please do. And, get out and vote. Every election's important. So, thank you.
City Administrator?
I have nothing.
I just had a couple things. I will not be at our next meeting, so Alder Kitzler will be chairing the meeting. And you were all sent your information about committee members who are up for reappointment this year. I'd appreciate it if you could get your responses to Leah and myself within the next 2 weeks or so. So if we, I imagine there'll be some who don't want to be reappointed, so we can get the information about what committees have openings up on the city website as soon as possible. Alderman?
Sorry, I just wanted to say that, Joan, for those people that may have missed it, your PSA about the elections on VMO is fantastic. You have another career in radio if you ever want to get in. Really, you did it. You just did a fabulous job. So I just wanted to say kudos because I just really impressed. Really impressed.
Thank you.
Monona Joan. Okay.
Also agree.
Okay, anything else? All right, we have one appointment, as it happens, of Steve Andrews, election inspector, effective January 1st through December 31st of 2021. Is there a motion to approve?
Approval.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is approved. Is
Can I
there,
just say, Mayor, he is working non-paid, just so y'all know. But he was very interested in the process and is happy to work.
well, after all those nights of sitting in your office while we haul the returns over, it probably wants to see what happens at the poll over it. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you.
So it's weird, all the differences.
Yeah.